One of the most celebrated directors of our time, he made a name for himself with movies that delve into complex philosophical, sociological, and ethical themes, ranging from human morality to metaphysics. Christopher Nolan is currently one of the most renowned directors, and with the release of Oppenheimer, we're excited to share some of the highlights from the life of this director who's making history in Hollywood. So let's dive in! Christopher was born on July 30, 1970 in London. Holding dual citizenship because his mother is American, he constantly moved between his hometown in England and Chicago. By the age of 7, he was already creating audiovisual content, using an amateur camera borrowed from his father to shoot short films. At the age of 8, he produced an animation titled Space Wars, directly inspired by the Star Wars saga, which he was fascinated by. Recently, Nolan mentioned that he was very proud of his work on the animation at the time, but watching it again recently with his children, he was surprised and disappointed by the poor quality of the production. In college, he studied English literature at University College London, attracted by the quality of its audiovisual production facility. Within the College Film Society, Nolan began producing films with slightly better cameras that were financed by the college during the academic year. It was during his undergraduate studies that the director produced his two main short films. The first was a surreal film called Tarantella, shown at an independent film showcase. The second, Larceny, was shot over a weekend with an extremely low budget, funded by Nolan himself and featured at the Cambridge Film Festival in 1996. The director would also produce a third short, titled Doodlebug, about a man in an apartment trying to kill an insect that has been bothering him for some time. Despite being only 2 minutes long, the film is well made, and even with a simple premise, is capable of engaging the viewer and delivering a shock at the end. Throughout his career, Nolan has directed 15 productions since the late 90s, earning 3 Oscar nominations, though he has yet to win one. However, at the start of his career, he had to overcome a lot of obstacles to continue doing what he loved, including finding ways to finance his films. Therefore, while writing, directing, and editing his films, he also worked full-time, requiring a tremendous amount of discipline and time management. Despite all the effort and determination, Nolan only began to gain recognition when he turned 30 and his production started to reach a wider audience. After that, his films won a total of 7 awards in addition to another 19 Oscar nominations, making him one of the most successful current directors, and managing to move from independent film producer with a small budget to the mind behind some of the most profitable blockbusters in recent years. With the recognition gained and the techniques learned in college, the young filmmaker created his first thriller, Following, in 1998, which tells the story of an unemployed young writer who starts following strangers on the street until he meets a thief who changes his life. With a budget of only $6,000, this film was highly recognized at various international festivals and gave Nolan the credibility to raise funds for his next movie. From the beginning of his career, the director demonstrated the ability to create good films with a very low cost, knowing how to captivate people and tell great stories with the limited resources available. In 2000, the director released his second thriller, Memento, with a screenplay he wrote himself, based on a short story by his brother, Jonathan Nolan. Memento brought the director honors and nominations for Best Screenplay and paved the way for his next film, the also acclaimed thriller Insomnia, which tells the story of 2 detectives sent to Alaska to investigate the murder of a teenager. With 2 major successes, Nolan settled into the genre of suspense and psychological thrillers, which became his hallmark. This also shows that the director knew how to recognize his talents, focusing on a style of film that he had greater mastery and skill, seeking to specialize in the same segment to conquer his space in cinema. But he also knew how to take advantage of the opportunities that came his way. An example of this is the brilliant work he performed in the DC universe. His first production in 2005, Batman Begins, took a darker tone than the previous films of the hero, mainly addressing the character's construction from his fear of bats, his training in the League of Shadows to become a vigilante, and the moral disagreements that made him leave the Order. Nolan also developed a deeper storyline into the corruption of Gotham, giving his saga more realistic air compared to other superhero films. In 2008, the second film of the saga, The Dark Knight, continued the story of the crime fighter. However, the main focus of the new film is the Joker, masterfully played by Heath Ledger, giving his performance of a lifetime. And the second film was even more successful than the first, acclaimed as the best superhero movie of all time. Released in 2012, the third film in the franchise, The Dark Knight Rises, was not as successful as its predecessors, but managed to mark a decent end to the Batman saga. Thank you, Talia. Thank you.
It's done.
The success of the trilogy led Nolan to be requested for other films in the DC Comics universe. Refusing the role of a director, he became executive producer of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. Not a great decision here. A trend in Nolan's films is always to work with both human and scientific issues, exploring the relationship between the two in an ethical level. A great example of this is the plot of the movie The Prestige, and another film by the director that questions the ethical conditions for the use of science is Inception, showing the story of a group of people capable of manipulating other people's dreams and shaping them in a way to get what they want. A group led by Cobb, a genius who uses immersion in others' dreams to steal secrets from large corporations, has the difficult task of using the same technology to implant an idea in the head of a company director, in a way that benefits their client. Also, if you want to learn more about the story of these two great actors, we've already done 2 episodes on the journey of the heroes of Leonardo and Cillian that you can check out on our channel. In the last decade, Nolan has sought to delve more deeply into the field of science. In Interstellar, the director addressed issues related to space travel as a way to save humanity if planet Earth ceases to be able to sustain human presence. And the film was the target of numerous critiques, both positive and negative. In other words, this is proof that no one, not even Nolan, is unanimous in their creations. But he does not let himself be paralyzed by external opinions, and he shouldn't, because Interstellar is a masterpiece. In 2017, he made Dunkirk, and for the first time in his career, a film based on real events, focused on the rescue of British soldiers trapped on the beach of Dunkirk in Denmark during World War II. The film received much praise and was rated as one of the best films of the year. A very original mark of Nolan's is that he likes non-linear stories, often using flashbacks placed in the middle of the main narrative to bring important elements from the past. It's also common for the director to start the film with a scene that takes place at the end of it, as well as creating mesmerizing plot twists as a way to surprise the viewer at a decisive moment. Regarding characters, Nolan usually presents protagonists with problems or who hide important secrets, always leaving us in doubt to whether we should trust them or not. In general, the problems they have refer to some past event to which they remain attached. It's also common for these characters to present some condition or illness. Nolan continues to improve his work and is not afraid to innovate or seek different ways to tell his stories, which has generated a great highlight in his career, despite having received many negative judgments at the beginning. His latest film to date was Oppenheimer, and Chris was very happy with the final result. In interviews, he confessed that he feels optimistic about the Hollywood film industry, and even said it was the biggest success of his career so far. Indeed, with 13 nominations, Oppenheimer dominates the 2024 Oscar nominees. But tell us, do you think Nolan has one bad movie? And did you already know this wonderful story of him? It's amazing to follow the growth and the fruits of the seeds planted in the past and see how courage is a virtue present in all heroes. Now Nolan is reaping what he sowed since his youth. Will he finally take the Oscar home this year? And if you like this episode, leave a like to reach more people, and if you want to see new episodes about the journey of real-life heroes, subscribe to our channel to receive upcoming content. That's all for today. I'll see you next time.